Okay, we'll kick off, I think. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this Association for Rental Living webinar. So, my name is Graham Sibley. I'm the Operations and Marketing Director at the Association for Rental Living. I'm your host for the session, and I'll introduce the stars of the show in a moment. Just to give you a background, the Association for Rental Living is the membership body representing the institutionally backed, professionally managed rental living sector, fastest growing sector in housing, and really an important element in delivering the 1.5 million new homes that the government has targeted. Our purpose is fourfold. We are here to drive standards in build to rent. We are advocating for the build to rent sector with government and increasingly with consumers to raise awareness of rental. We are facilitating business opportunities and providing insights. And today fits the latter category, bringing to leading edge insights into the issues that matter in build to rent and sharing best practice. So this is the first in a series of events focusing on delivering and measuring social value and impact within the build-to-rent sector. The accent is on helping every build-to-rent investor on their social value and impact journey, whether new to this or more mature. This journey provides a realistic approach to help build-to-rent investors and operators align themselves with the Association for Rental Living Code of Practice, which you'll hear about during this webinar. Few things we'd like you to take away from this. Why does social impact and value matter to build-to-rent investors, managers, and the community? What is social value? What is impact? Qualitative and quantitative approaches. What does good look like, and different ways of measuring? How can you put a framework in place, and how do you retrofit social value, and insights from people on the ground on their journey towards social value maturity. So there's ample opportunity for you to get involved. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to put your questions, which I'll be monitoring, and I'll put the questions to the panel after they've had their initial discussion. This event is being recorded and it will be on our website for future viewing at your leisure. So let me introduce you to the panel. We have Donna McKittrick from Get Living. We have Neve Waldron from Sigma Capital and Amy Ingham from The Good Economy. And the discussion will be led by Cleo Fuchs. Cleo is the lead consultant at Thrive and will be leading the discussion, as I say. She's got a wide range of experience in the property sector, gathered from more than 30 years, together with her expertise in social value and social impact. So that's enough from me for now. I look forward to bringing you questions later. Over to you, Cleo, for now.
Thank you very much, Graham. I will be sharing some slides. Let me make that full screen. Okay, good morning, everyone. And I'm going to stick within the 10 minutes. I don't want to bore you to death. So my name is Cleo Fuchs and I work for Thrive. We are a social value measurement platform. We've started outside of the real estate sector, but we've now building specialist real estate sector expertise. And in all those 30 years, I've actually had the privilege to work with parties from across the spectrum in social value and in real estate. Those parties were people that were just starting out, having really small buildings, small areas under their control, to people who were on the other side. They had some very large assets and maybe had a real dedicated team who'd been implementing social value impact activities for years. So I've seen the whole spectrum, but there's one common thread, which is their desire to make a positive impact and to do the best they can. And everybody was learning and trying to improve, to do better with what they had. So what I want you to take away from today is that nobody starts out perfect. And everyone is on a social value journey, but it's important to just start, to do something, and to stand up to be counted. That is what really helps. And we can really help you measure what you do so you can help improve your impact. And we're there to support you and your stakeholders on that journey. And when I say we, it's Thrive, but also the community around you. Everyone on this webinar, we're all there to help you on that journey. So first of all, what is social value and what is impact in real estate? And actually Thrive sits on a measurement committee that came out of UK Reef, and they have a very long definition, which I won't give you today. Sorry about that. I'm actually going to give you a definition of the UK Green Building Council. Social value is a term for the economic, environmental, and social benefits that are experienced by people. To understand their worth, these benefits are often measured and sometimes assigned a financial figure. Social value looks beyond mere financial returns to give a more holistic view, and it's about consciously making long-term positive changes to people's quality of life, and even the really small steps that you can do count. Of course, bigger ones, great, but if you can't, then you can't. So it's about aiming to go beyond risk management. It's not about box ticking. It's about going beyond contractual obligations and standard practice, and it's about making it really meaningful. So start with doing what your company can do and look specifically at what the local area needs. People normally don't start that way. They'll figure out later on that that makes it more powerful. Try to address the local needs. By taking social value into consideration in everything that you do, you create so much more value for all. And you might think, okay, so what are the kind of things that you can do? Actually, there is the Build to Rent code of practice, which sets the tone and tells you that you need to take action, measurement, and benchmarking into account, that they all matter and what is expected of you. But however, most of all, it's all about doing the right thing to create more value for everyone by being more thoughtful and considered in your actions. So it doesn't have to cost a lot to create more value, but it really requires a change in mindset. And Donna, Amy will all tell you that later, I presume. The ARL's Build to Rent Code of Practice will tell you how to treat your tenants, your staff, and community, as well as providing transparency to investors and stakeholders. So why does it actually matter to provide social value and impact? It matters to investors, to managers, the community, the tenants. It will create lasting relationships and it will create a really robust, thriving community. And it will be driven by good governance. This all creates resilience. And of course, Build to Rent is a long-term investment, which benefits from having happy tenants in a thriving neighborhood. You have lower crime, better economy, it's better for the asset in the end, and it will also support the asset value. Happy staff, when they're treated fairly, when they love their job, when they love working with the community, they will deliver more. They'll be more loyal and hopefully likely to stay longer. The community will obviously gain from investments that improve their overall quality of life, and things included are things like amenities, the infrastructure, and safety. As an investor or as someone delivering all this, it will enhance your reputation. What is your brand? For asset managers, it's often about portfolio diversification, and it's also about aligning with ESG criteria. Often it is about box ticking, and it's about contributing to risk management and good governance. These days, investors demand it. It's no longer optional. They want transparent, robust data on that. So what are the kind of things that you can do to add social value? I loved reading about the donut economics from Kate Raworth. I think there are some really key points in here. So she explains how we need to take societal and ecological considerations into account besides purely financial ones. So this donut that she has, it looks at the social foundation, and it's about ensuring that nobody falls short on life's essentials. I think we all would love to do that. But also she recommends to make sure that actions that you do don't fall outside the ecological ceiling. Key principles are trying to do no harm and be net positive in all that we do. So social value impact, we are all aligned on these kind of things. We all want to do the right thing. We all want to do things that make life better without doing harm. There's also the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Those are all tools and frameworks that you can think about using. But then for doing all these kind of things, what KPIs would you choose? And they all differ per initiative. So actually putting all this in place is easier said than done. And people try to do it, but find it complicated to do, difficult to measure, difficult to report, let alone improve, which is really what we all want to do. So, okay, I work for a software company. I'm going to tell you that good software and easy to pick metrics help. But that is really the truth. So Thrive uses the impact evaluation standard. That is all about proxy values. But the impact evaluation standard is an independently governed framework that has lots of metrics that can help companies measure their social value impact. We also have real estate specific metrics, and more are being developed over time. We do this together with the real estate sector and the build to rent sector. These metrics are also mapped to the UN SDGs, which is really helpful with reporting. We align with lots of different metrics and principles of other frameworks. I can't mention all of them, but we are already fully mapped to the UN SDGs. We do aim to become a full-point certification for the GRESB real estate assessment covering the S and ESG. And you might say, well, why proxy values? Why do they matter? Are they the only thing that matters? No, it's part of the story. But a proxy value can really help you indicate the magnitude of the value that you deliver. It can really help you set priorities. And it's just one part of the overall picture. Not everything can be expressed in pounds and pence. And the quality of what you do matters just as much as the quantity. And telling the story that brings it all to life. So when you do social impact, it's thriving in an ecosystem where we all work together. This ecosystem is so important, but having the tools and the insight and the guidance to be able to support everyone is really important in this ecosystem. By the way, on the metrics, I don't put them together. There is an arm's length team. They are all, that's their job. They all have a very statistically sound way of doing it. I'm not here to talk about how we calculate metrics. I'm just here to talk about how can you do it and how can it be a tool for you. So I'm going to rush through this. So we actually look at asking questions on governance and the quality of your actions. So when we ask for the metrics, we will say, what do you do? But also, how well do you do all these things? It's not just about creating a job, but what's the quality of job? And are they going to the right people that really need it? So we have 4 themes. We have equal opportunities, and there's things like tackling workforce inequality, and there's reducing the disability employment gap, which all really matter. So not everything is only focused on the assets. There are also wider societal benefits. Then there's tackling economic inequality, and often creating new jobs, new skills, helping people train up are such an important way to create value for society, and even better if you can do that for local people. Well-being is just so important, and that improves looking at people's mental health, physical health, looking at improving community integration, community outreach. That's all part of that. So think about all the things that you do. There's so many more things that you can do than you already do. A lot of people aren't aware of the whole breadth of what they can do. It's not just about volunteering. It's not just about donations. It's not just about diversity, equity, inclusion. There's so many exciting things that you can do. And your stewardship really has a very important role to play in this. So what are some of the key lessons that I've learned from measuring social value impact in real estate? My lessons are that everybody has to start somewhere, but you have to start with education. Education is key. Tell them what you're doing, what the benefits are, explain their roles, what they can do and help them get started. That is really how you have to start, because no matter how much you want to do it, if those people working with you don't understand, it's not going to happen. You have to cause this avalanche to start happening. But also, the best way to help everyone is by making it as simple, as frictionless as possible. Don't forget to involve your supply chain. They are just so essential. They are at the building all the time. So they can do all these different things for the people at the building and those around the building. So your asset managers really need to enable, stimulate property and building managers to play their part, and in turn, those who work with key suppliers. So you have people like front of house, security, landscaping, repairs and maintenance. These are in your building all the time. They can do lots of different things. So help them. So build social value in all that you do. Change your mindset, and really magnify and steer the passion of people on the ground. If they're already really enthused about doing something, just help them do that. And if you think they could be more powerful doing slightly different things, then do that with your education. But build on it and nurture it. Work with your strengths. What is right will differ for everyone. Try to improve what you do already, and then do a benefit. Then they will all benefit from a gap analysis and what to do next. Small things can be really powerful. So the build to rent and real estate sector need to start conversations on how to do this implementation, measurement and benchmarking on reporting social impact next best. So we're working with the ERA on this. So we're going to do the why, this risk management masterclass, which will be held on the 11th of March at Pins and Masons in London. You'll be able to sign up for that soon. And also very important is where hopefully the whole build to rent sector will come together to talk about what's the best methodology and impact measurement and benchmarking, which will be held on the 26th of March at Gensler. So we'll be very happy to be working with you and some of the experts in the industry. So Stacey Taysom will be supporting us on the 11th of March. And time for me to shut up and hand over to Niamh, please. We really look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks very much, Cleo. And good morning, everybody. The first thing I'd say is Cleo's just given us everything. So the first thing is don't panic. There's lots in there, but don't panic. And I joined this whole field actually after 30 years in education. And so that piece about education, Cleo, is so, so important. We're all learning all the time. Every day is a learning day. You learn something new every day. But who are we? Who are Sigma? So I'm the ESG director with Sigma Capital, but Simple Life Homes is our brand. And I know Cleo mentioned the importance of brand. We have approximately 8,000 houses in rent, let across the country in 120 different sites, from Perth in the north of Scotland to Exeter down the south and everything in between. And there are another 4,000 under construction at the moment, released weekly. So how do we approach social value and what does it mean to us? I think the really key thing for me that I've learned along the line is that you've got to be growing the whole time. You've got to be learning the whole time. You've got to be adaptable, flexible, and you've not to panic about what everybody else is doing. Be confident and clear in what you need to deliver. And I think that's, for us, we went back, when I first started, we were much smaller, and then you grow and you grow. And at one point, it's very easy to locate, but for us, my job description was the important key and is the important key every morning. So what is my job description? It's one line: make people's lives better or a little bit easier by what we do as a business. So if we keep that to the fore, and the other two words that I keep to the fore are geographic and demographic. So yes, there will be monetary measurement, but the bottom line for us is people. We are building houses so that people can build homes in communities that you hope they're going to stay in, going back to Cleo's point about it being a long-term investment. Long after the construction partners have left, BTR is still there. And for us, the majority of our assets are single-family homes. So they're houses with front doors, back gardens, young people going off to school, people who've downsized and are retiring into the homes. So there's everything from cradle to the grave, which is exactly the same in the asset class that we're trying to establish. So I think it's really important to stress that no one size fits all. How we do it at Simple Life and how I go about traveling around the country. I'm currently in Manchester, but I'm actually based in Edinburgh, and I'm off to Birmingham tomorrow and then down to the southwest in a couple of weeks. And I was in London last week. That doesn't work for everybody, but it works for us. And so that focus on the ground, people first, as a result of keeping people at the center of everything, the environment in which they live in will automatically be a key focus point. And beyond that, then prosperity and hopefully an asset class that thrives. Pardon the use of another word. There are lots of platforms out there. And yes, being mindful of them all and keeping aware of them all. And we certainly have engaged with them all. But for us, that monetization and that social value proxy bit didn't work. I'm not saying it won't work going forward, but at the moment, the way we tell our story is storytelling. It's on a local level. It's going out to meet the people in our communities and asking them, what do you need? What is required where our homes are? How are we going to make that difference? Our colleagues, and going back to what Cleo was saying about supply chain, it's building that purpose-built ecosystem and coming back to it shouldn't cost and doesn't need to cost. I don't have a massive budget. It doesn't need to cost a lot because actually you can get a lot of things for nothing if you talk to lots of different people and you link up different people with other people in your ecosystem and working together, collaborating, not being afraid to try something. And if it doesn't work, which I have tried and it doesn't work, and admitting that didn't work, but actually moving on and learning from it. That whole being anxious about what we should be doing and hearing what everybody else is doing. I can't stress how it is. Find what it is that works for you. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's a way, but that way is what you want as a business. What are your goals? What are your targets? What do you want? What impact do you want to have on your local community, your wider community, your investors? What are they looking for? And try and pull that all together to actually be really clear in your minds what it is that as a business you want to achieve, which is what we've done. And we've taken it, away from the monetization. And I will argue, as people know, till I'm blue in the face about that doesn't work for us. But I'm not saying it doesn't work for everybody because I've seen it work for others. But for us, apportioning the funds that we have to a local charity or group or club where they're saying this is the impact it will have, and then you get the feedback, that's the impact. There could be that you're supporting one particular group and then it's going to be 10 people might benefit, but you don't know that those 10 people don't meet 10 more people and 10 more people and 10 more people. So, don't not do something because you're worried that it won't impact the right number of people or hit a right metric or tick a box. If it's what's right for your business, then please have a go at it and feedback and collaborate and learn from others. And I know we do it slightly differently. So I'm going to pass on to Donna, I think, who does it. And we work very closely. We've known one another for a long time, but they do it in a slightly different way to us. You're on mute, Donna.
There we go. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. It's really strange because I can't actually see you all on the galley, so it's bizarre talking to you. So yes, I'm from Get Living, ESG director. I look after all aspects of our environmental and social impact, so everything from decarbonisation planning through to the social value approach that we take at Get Living. As Niamh said, we do take a slightly different approach, but actually there's quite a big element of what Niamh said in our approach. When I first came in a couple of years ago, I think our social value had been quite organic, and that had both real pros and some cons to it across the business. The pros were that we'd nurtured some amazing partnerships that are sort of come in through a local source. We ran with it. It grew. The colleagues at the assets got involved. And it really, really worked. But we also had some negatives in the sense that we'd helped a lot of people in very small piecemeal ways. We hadn't really stayed connected to them. And a lot of the choices of how we'd got invested were driven by individuals as opposed to a team collective, and that meant that they sort of came and went with those individuals. So the passion, the connection to them, and to a certain extent the value that we could deliver to that partner came and went with individuals. And so we took a look across the group and we set out essentially a strategy that we felt could respond both locally and across the board as a sort of portfolio level, so that we could do stuff at corporate, but we could also do things that really had that localized feel. And we did that by, Cleo touched on it, creating a narrative story around it. So there's 4 themes that we really focus on across Get Living assets, of which there's 7 neighbourhoods now across the UK. So big scale neighbourhoods bringing lots of people together living in apartments, everything from families through to single international students. So we're quite varied in our audience, and we wanted themes that both were representative to the residents, but also representative who we are and what we actually offer and where we felt we could have a material impact. And so we chose health and well-being, which has already come up quite a bit, connecting people to nature and sustainable behaviours, celebrating arts and culture, and supporting skills, enterprise and employment in the areas in which we work, and also with our residents. And we picked those themes so that everybody could get behind them and they understood what we were trying to stand for, both with our local bursary and our wider projects, but also so it could be multi-layered. So we have sort of 3 layers, I guess, of social value work. The first is that localized response. So we have a local bursary that the asset team actually gets to have ownership over, and also the residents get to vote against the finalist of who comes through for that. They have to respond to one of those 4 areas in order that the sort of narrative comes back in, and it works for us as a group. It works for the investor narrative, it works for the reporting narrative, which I will come on to, but it also means that locally they get some sense of ownership. We found that quite successful so far. We work with Action Funder, so they actually another reason to have the themes and the sort of setting is they reach out into the community and find partners for us who might be wanting to do something in this space or are doing something in this space but haven't yet thought to look for funding. We upped the amount of money that they could get. So previously we had quite a small pot that you could access, and it did limit, it did limit who could come in. So we haven't put a minimum. They can still come in for a really tiny amount, because some charities, £3,000, you feel it's not very much, but it's a lot for them if they're small and just starting out. But you can now apply for much more than that in the pot, which means we get people who do want to do bigger projects, and we can work with them across the year with other things like volunteering and us doing marketing events, resident events, etc. We also, the second layer is cross portfolio, so things that we run at sort of corporate level, I suppose, across the portfolio. So a good example is we've started working with Trade, who are the pre-loved clothes charity, if anybody knows them. It really links into our sustainable behaviours, but it also offers a great resident experience. We've had workshops where they've redone their jeans, they've beaded, put patterns into jeans, etc. We've got collection bins at the assets, and that's just rolling out. We started at Elephant and Castle, and it will roll out. Now we've got the model, so we've delivered it there. We've done the comms there. We've done these sort of learning points for the estates management team. It means it'll be easier to roll out. So that's our second layer. And then our third layer, I don't really know what to call it, but I suppose it's things that are quite potentially unique to us and the opportunities we have, either the neighbourhood we're in, so East Village being in the middle of a cultural hub. We have the Lab E20 there, which some of you may have heard of. It's a partnership with Rayburn Design, and we do thought leadership in regenerative design. So a really different spin on social value, but bringing people from globally, actually they come in to the Lab E20 and do thought leadership around regenerative design, and we sponsor students. We do exhibitions with the London College of Arts, artist in resident, all of these kind of things. And then another example of it is we ran the biophilia conference this year called Co-Creation. So the first conference of its kind, really, where we brought together all of the people that will be part of making more ecologically friendly assets in the future. both internally, the way we design our apartments, and if we bring biophilia, that if you don't know biophilia, it's having plants, the patterns of nature, etc., inside an internal space so that you feel more connected. It has a lot of health and well-being benefits, but also our nature outside. We have a big biodiversity action plan across the assets, so this links into that. And we ran this conference. It brought together architects, funders, developers, basically everybody in the chain who has a part in determining how we create these assets in the future. And the idea is that we hope to have kick-started lots of relationships that will over time deliver better social value through what we create, everything from our communal spaces to our bedrooms to our to the assets across the sector for all of us, because that learning is hopefully feeding back into the sector. So that's our approach. I don't know how long I have for time, but I think I'm all right. Measurement, I'll touch on it because everybody else has talked a lot about measurement. We sit somewhere in the middle where we do metrics. We have an ambition to align with the CSRD disclosures, the European disclosures, and by default that means we have to look at social impact metrics, and so ours are evolving over time. They're pretty basic at the moment, I would say, the metrics we capture. In terms of numbers, the amount we've invested, volunteers, the things you would expect to see in a sort of GRI aligned report right now. But we did do some work, which Amy's going to touch on, with the good economy last year. Was it last year, Amy? Year before, maybe. Looking at how we could grow those metrics over time to be a bit more reflective of who we are as a company. And some of that is coming in with these like benchmarks around the way we design our spaces, for example, to look at the social impact that they have. So that's been really useful to open our eyes. The other thing we do is we do collect impact stories. So there are certain things that we're trying to collect. So if we've improved soft skills, if we've improved access to jobs, so we've kind of got little groupings of impacts that we try and capture when we capture an impact story from a charity. It's not across the board, and those will never be reflective, I don't think, of all the impact that's had, because loads of charities don't track things, but they do great things. And we don't want to give them a whole load of extra work to try and track our metrics, but we do try and capture it at times to see, I suppose, what the narrative is, because it's the narrative we then feed back to colleagues primarily. The data is primarily for the investors and the disclosure audience, but the impact stories are what get the colleagues, your assets and the residents more engaged. So yeah, we sit somewhere in the middle. Hopefully that's a quick overview. Sorry, I felt like I whizzed through.
Thanks, Donna. I think that's me up next then. Really good to, yeah, it's a great treat to be here and to hear all these reflections. And I think one of the things I'm reflecting on after those three comments is just that we're all grappling with a lot of the same things. And what we're trying to do is get to the bottom of how do we make a big difference, maximize the difference that we can make for people, places and the planets, the residents and the communities that BTR is happening in. So just very briefly, a bit of background on the good economy where I work. So we're a mission-focused social impact advisory firm, and we're small, but we have a mighty aim of basically trying to leverage capital to work better for people, places, and the planet. And through that, basically help solve some of the gnarly challenges of today and create a good economy that works for everyone, including the most vulnerable. We do have quite a strong focus on housing and real estate, including BTR. And that's basically because we see it as having a really strong potential to be part of the solution for the housing crisis, as well as other problems like regeneration and the productivity puzzle and all those kind of gnarly ones that are coming up today. But we really think that to get the maximum positive benefit from BTR, it doesn't happen organically, and it does need this strong intentional approach to understanding and maximizing and measuring social impact, and also managing some of the risks that can come with it. Basically, I've got two hats coming here today. So first will be our client work, and secondly, I'd like to talk a bit more about the code of practice that we've been working on with the ARL that Cleo mentioned at the beginning. And just to reflect a bit on the client work, and thanks Donna for the intro there. Essentially, we work with lots of different types of organizations like investors, developers like Get Living. We work at the fund level, but also at many, many different levels. But the core is people come to us because they're grappling with social impact and they want to be maximizing their approach to it. We're experts in global best practice for impact measurement and management and regulation that's emerging in this space. But what we try to do is just acknowledge that everyone's at a different starting place on this journey. And like Niamh said, the important thing to do is to get started. So we essentially start by going in and understanding what's in place, what people are grappling with and what they're doing already. So with Get Living, as Donna mentioned, there was already a lot going on. There was some really positive, strong strategies that were emerging in terms of how to really create places that inspire belonging and are good for people. What we do is we basically take a theory of change approach with our clients. So this is in line with best practice for impact measurement and management, and organizations like Impact Frontiers, Operational Principles for Impact Management very much advocate this approach. And what it tries to do is really get to the bottom of what difference are you trying to make? What are the positive outcomes that you're trying to achieve? And also, what are the levers that you've got at your disposal to achieve those positive outcomes? And how can you maximize the difference that you're making through your investments, through your developments? And it's a case of mapping it out, really. So you've got your kind of lofty ambitions, the change you want to make. And Cleo mentioned health and well-being. That's really strong through many of our clients as well. But it's what are you going to do to achieve those changes? So with that theory of change, that kind of underpins everything. From there, you build out the impact measurement and management plan. And I'm sure we'll come back to measurement many times. But just to kind of outline the good economies approach, again, similarly to Niamh and Donna, we don't put monetization at front and center. But what we do is try to sort of center in on what are the most useful KPIs and measures to essentially evidence that theory of change, to understand whether the outcomes that you want to achieve have been achieved, and check that you're delivering what you're meant to be delivering. But we do align our KPIs with global best practice metrics, of which there are several sources, like Cleo says. But essentially, it's really trying to have that utilization focused lens. What do we need to measure to ensure decisions are evidence-based? It's not about sort of feeding a beast, which I think measurement can feel like sometimes. It really should be about making informed decisions to maximize the difference that you're trying to make. Again, I'm sure we'll loop around to this in the discussion, but that's the core of what I want to get across. And our approaches are qualitative and quantitative, very much focused on the voice of people and communities as well. And in terms of impact management, this is really about locking impact into decision making. And it's about making sure that understanding our clients' sort of decision making processes and trying to make sure that where finances are considered, investments are considered, whether where the performance of investments is considered, as well as whether and when to invest. There are questions of impact as well. So that might be through a screen. Have we got any bottom lines, things that we won't invest in because there's too much impact risk? Or is it that it's just not in line with the impact that we're trying to achieve as an organization? But also questions around what potential has the scheme got to deliver positive impact? And then, of course, has it done it? So it's about really ensuring that impact is locked into decision making, as well as considerations of impact risk as well. And then it's about taking the theory, and this is the messy bit, it's about taking the theory into practice. So thinking about implementation, and that's where we had some really good conversations with Get Living as well. It can't sit on a shelf and gather dust. You've got to understand where an organization is at and think about more about a staged implementation plan. What does this look like next year? What does it look like in 3 years? Where are we trying to get to? And how can we bring people with us to make sure we're doing it well? And so yeah, that pretty much sums up our client side work. And as I mentioned, the other hat that I've got on today is about this code of practice, which we worked with the ARL we've currently developed some principles to underpin it. But essentially, this is a sector-led initiative. It's come very much from the members of the ARL who felt this is something that the sector needs. What it is it's intended to be a kite mark or standard that forms a social contract with consumers and communities and the BTR industry. And at its core, there are these 7 principles, which basically sets out the stall of the industry of what sustainability and social impact look like. They're principles around professional service, security, quality, sustainability, community, and good governance. And it really, we consulted heavily on it. So it's very much come from members of the ARL. And it essentially tries to raise the bottom line and the bar on what good looks like in terms of those things within BTR. And the ambition is basically once this kite mark is up and running, and the next step is to develop its teeth, essentially, so its enforcement mechanism. It's to ensure that signatories really do show that they're meeting that standard of what good looks like in terms of sustainability and social impact. And it's about building trust in the sector, showing that it's got this elevated offer from the wider PRS, which we know has quite a negative narrative around it. And it's about ensuring that the BTR sector is essentially rallied around these core principles and evidencing that it's meeting the standard that it needs to meet to show that it's there for people, it's there for communities, and it's there for the planet as well. My understanding is there's already a lot of buy-in from organizations across the sector in terms of who's going to be signatories to it. But I guess from the good economy's perspective and our perspective, and like what Cleo said at the beginning, it really is a great starting point in terms of thinking about what the sector looks like in terms of driving positive social impact across the sector, building its trust and elevating that standard. Before I hand back to Cleo, because I'm aware we're going to go on to the discussion, I just thought across those 2 hats, there are just some reflections on this question of the value of social value and social impact and how to approach it. And I just thought there's a couple of reflections before I wrap up. And one of those is basically, I think we've kind of said it, but social impact isn't an add-on. It's core to everything that is done through BTR. You can't have sort of the investment or the development activity and then social value activities. It's basically through everything. Another thing is that it's inherently place-based, long-term and iterative. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, as I think we've said, but it is so vital to interpret that wider strategy to the needs of each particular place. But also it's important to take a person-centered lens. And like Niamh said, remembering that residents and people are at the core, and they're the ones that are going to feel the impact. You've got to get the basics right, and then everything else sort of flows from there, really. And finally, it's that question of it being messy. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that I think lots of people say we don't have the answer to social impact yet. And I think that's such a difficult way to look at it. The point is get started. And because the whole point is to have a strategy and then for it to be real and involve people and involve places, it will be inherently messy and to look different in different places and to be something that's grappled with and tussled with and maybe causes a few arguments about what the right approach is. But that's okay. And just be wary of the person who comes and says, we have the one answer to this, because I think, like everyone said, we're all grappling, and that's a good thing. I'll pass back to Cleo now.
Actually, Graham, I thought you would be asking some of the questions. There was actually a question which came in by email that I haven't got in front of me.
Yeah.
It wasn't an easy one to answer. So maybe you can read us that one.
Yeah. Oh, I'm coming back now. Hi there. Yes, Cleo. And so, yes, thanks for. I've got a couple of questions actually coming, one in the chat as well. And I'll start with that one actually. The questions come in from Ahmed, and he has asked the distinction between a company's existing efforts to meet its CSR obligations and what is considered social value. How do you differentiate between the two? And where do you see the biggest gaps or opportunities for businesses to go beyond compliance and create meaning social impact? So yeah, quite a broad-ranging question, but I'll put that to you all.
I'd read that while Amy was chatting, actually, so I don't mind starting, as I feel like our front run as Amy was busy talking. I think everybody will have a different opinion here, and there is some argument that it's just a name, and I've seen it called many things in my career, starting from ecology through to CR, through to CSR, through to sustainability, through to ESG, and now we're coming back round on ecology again. So I think it depends how your company took it, but certainly from our perspective, I think CSR was what you might see as the more traditional social activities. So philanthropy, I can never say that word, volunteering, that kind of aspect of social value that was perhaps easier to get hold of, and you might see still reflected in the metrics because they're easier to capture. What have you donated? How many people did you involve in a program? And those kind of things. And they still are reflected in the core way you would write in an ESG report. So they're what's in the table at the back. But I think for us, the difference was that social value is more about the way you operate. So every single choice you're making, from the supplier that you're picking, do they look after their workers? Do they pay the right salary? Do they have good benefits, etc.? All the way through to what's the green space like that you create in the assets you have? Can people get to a park easily? Can they sit and look at a tree if they want to? Are there birds singing in the trees? Much of which, again, traditionally would be seen as more environmental. But I think that is, for me, the big difference between this sort of packaged up notion of corporate investment or community investment versus social value and how you're affecting people in every single decision that you make. And I think that's why it's, as Amy said, it's quite messy. It's quite hard to track because it's more an ethos than anything else, and one that you need to first awaken people to the idea of that every single decision could have a social value or a social negative, and then figure out how you make that a bit more doable. Because of course you can't tackle when we worked with a good economy, there was a point at which we were, goodness me, there's so much we could do. And we had to work, didn't we, Amy, backwards and forwards to kind of stagger that. How could we get there? Because that feels immense right now, and the company's sort of here, and I think we're stepping our way there. But part of it's this awakening to what social value could be.
Yeah, on the back of that, Don, I totally agree. I think it was the case when I certainly took over. It was, and I'm only in the business 4 and a little bit years, and it was that CSR, which almost, and it's not right to say it was box ticking, but it was very clear. It didn't really connect. It sort of sat by itself on the side. And whilst, yes, people were at the heart of it and decisions, and there were donations, and it could sit alone, but it didn't necessarily feel part of the wider picture and the decision making that you're making. And I think now for us, certainly, there's a huge aspect of engaging with our residents and our suppliers and our colleagues as to who should we support and why, and that long-term engagement with the people that we support. So even if it's a small little club, I had a club contact me, a women's cricket club in Runcorn, who we'd supported last year, and can we support them again? Because as a result, they've grown. That's not something that you could have captured on a CSR. It's something that actually you capture by being engaged with people and keeping that engagement going. And it's that, just on Ahmed's question, it's well beyond compliance. In fact, it's almost got nothing to do with compliance. It's got to do with that whole piece around decision-making being based on your ethos, your values as a business, what you're trying to achieve long-term, and the legacy. It's our reputation. It's who we are, as Donna said. It's what's in your very core being. And I think that's the big difference, but very, very difficult to capture. But actually, it's find yourself good storytellers and stick them in front of the investors. Don't take no for an answer. I just go, I'll tell you put me in front of you, I'll tell you what we do. And I think it's having the confidence to do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that CSR is really about short-term risk management, and social value and impact is about making a long-term positive difference. So it's about that going above and beyond and thinking about a more holistic picture of value. And there's also a question about how do you create the most meaningful social impact? With Thrive, we work with metrics, and we can tell you which are the more impactful metrics, but actually it's also about the quality in what you do and actually thinking about what the local needs are. Not everything that you do has to be only about the local community. It can be about what's best for society as a whole. If you hire long-term unemployed people who are disabled, are ex-convicts, they are so far removed from the job market, whether they come from the local area or wider society, it all makes a huge impact. So yes, you can look at some of the metrics, look at the values attached to them, or just look at the local needs and try and match what it is that they need. That's my answer.
Okay.
I think they were all brilliant answers. I don't really have anything to add apart from reiterating it's about starting with why are we here? Start with why and take it from there. It's not an add-on.
Thanks all. That's well answered. I think the question that Cleo alluded to came in from Hannah at PIC, and which was all about how do we quantify social impact. I think you've all touched on that during your presentation pieces, actually. So hopefully, Hannah, that's answered that. But if not, please come back to us and we'll seek together the better answer. I had another question which was prompted by what was just said there about how you ensure that your social impact value impact is right and aligned actually with local community needs. There's a concern, I guess, that BTR operators or investors might go, yes, we'll do what the business, support a little charity, whatever else. But how do you know that that's the right for the long term needs of the community, and how do you interact, for example, with local authorities to understand long-term need and how you can make a lasting impression?
I can have
needs analysis.
Yeah, go for it, Cleo, and that you go first, and then I'll.
Okay, I was going to say there is something called a local needs analysis. There's a tool within Thrive, but also there's local needs consultants, and they will really dig deep and can really guide you. And it's about monitoring in the long term. And you can do surveys and just see the responses with that, see if it's working. And of course, the storytelling will tell you if it works. What were you going to say, Amy? Hopefully I haven't said everything already.
No, you're good. Thank you. No, that's a very good answer, though. I think, I mean, at the Good Economy, we have a strong focus on place-based impact, and it is that sort of place-first approach. And we look at that in a number of ways. One is around engaging with the local place, obviously, and I think that often comes up in BTR, but it's about doing it meaningfully and having that conversation to ensure that you're locking into local plans, understanding what the needs of the place are from their perspective. I think there's an element of understanding it from a data perspective. So one of the things we did with Get Living was develop a local needs tool that looked at the data of a place and how to understand the local needs in relation to things like education, deprivation, and various strands like that. But most importantly, there's the matter of listening, and this cannot be skipped out. Essentially, you're going into a place, there's not nothing and then something. There are communities, there are people, and a fundamental part of everything from the beginning through to ongoing operations is around listening to the place and making sure your plans respond to those needs. And this is why there needs to be a lot of flex in your measurement system to adapt to what people tell you they want from the development and they want from your activities. It's to allow space for that. It's yes, have an overarching sort of framework which talks about well-being and things like that, but it needs to have the space to allow for the needs of the people as expressed by them to come through it.
I was just going to we'll go around the sort of circle. Absolutely, Amy, that whole listening piece and not pushing our agendas, what we think people need. We did a piece of research in London, actually, with making space for girls and countryside, and the London School of Economics, and it was all about getting young people to tell us what they need in their local communities, and what we think as developers that they need is so far removed from what they actually would like and need. We need to get in much earlier in the process, because part of the planning process is that whole a big green space. Well, a big, AstroTurf stroke big green space or a pitch isn't necessarily what young people want. It's not necessarily a safe place where girls or boys even feel they want to go and spend time in. That whole listening piece, but not just listening, because it's acting upon what we hear. I think it's the actions going forward. We can listen and listen and talk, and I say this quite a lot. There's an awful lot of talking, but having that confidence to actually say, do you know what, we're actually going to do this. It might not be, we may make a mistake the first time, but actually we're flexible enough to recognize that and then adapt, which I've done. There's been a couple of projects that we've got involved in, and I thought, was it the right decision? At the time, it certainly seemed like it was. But I learned from it and put other measures in place then going forward. So I think absolutely listen, but take action on what we and hear. It's all very good. I remember as a teacher saying, you might be listening to me, but are you actually hearing me?
I just wanted to add something as well, Graham, which is just a caveat to the listening, which is, of course, you need to speak to the local community, but you also need to make sure you speak to all of the community. So one of the things that happens quite a bit is that you'll get very loud voices within a community, and sometimes they are the loudest voice, and so they are the most responded to community sector. But actually they're often the ones, because they're the loudest, they are getting the most support, they are getting the most funding. And we actually found that when we data mine, so this is somewhere where I'm on the opposite side of the fence, where I love a bit of metrics, actually really digging down into the demographics, some of the socioeconomic data, and finding those people that we might be missing, because actually they're not on social media, they're not loud, they're not young and vibrant. We found in Elephant and Castle that actually our focus over the years has been on the Latin American community, but actually the community that came out most when we were sort of mining the data was the oldest residents, the sort of original Elephant and Castle residents, who have just seen this immense amount of change in their area. They don't understand the new communities, they're not linked into the new demographic, and they've really been left behind. And so just make sure that when you're listening, you really try and find the voices that aren't speaking as well, I think, and look at the data and be careful not to get swayed too much by political agendas of the time, or the media that you read this morning, or sort of social media bandwagons, and really think about who the group is, because it might be a different group to the group you think it is.
I think just to back that up, Donna, I do remember with the Get Living piece, one of the things, when it all matches up with the listening and the data, I remember you saying that you'd heard that the community wanted to do something on childhood obesity. And because of that, we were able to pull that as a metric into the tool. And it's that data and sort of feedback piece coming through. So you're able to kind of match your initiative to what you're hearing and seeing.
I agree, Donna. Actually, just one
very quickly,
on that, very quickly on that elderly, that older resident piece. Be careful we don't forget them. I totally agree, and they're not always on social media, and they're not always tech savvy. You've got to get out and talk to them.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to draw this to a close. Normally with these webinars, we get to about 10 minutes to go when we've run out of things to say. But as you can tell, a lot of passion here, a lot of great information. I note a comment in a chat from Jane Anderson. Thank you for that, who has offered to engage her colleague Chris Standish from Homes England to chat to this group on locally relevant social value and community engagement. So we'll follow that one through. Thank you everyone for your participation. I think we were really warming up there at the end, and that was excellent stuff. So thank you. Can I just to say, this has been recorded. We'll be posting this on the ARL website for viewing later. Cleo mentioned a couple of events which are coming up linked to this webinar, with a masterclass on the 11th of March alongside Sophie Taysom, and methodology, measurement and benchmarking on the 26th of March. Details of those will be coming out very shortly. Finally, just to say, the code of practice was mentioned several times today, that we've done extensive consultation with Association for Rental Living members. That has been brought into a second iteration, which will be released this week on Thursday for further review. But we'll also be using that to go out and engage government, policymakers, local authorities, because one of the and consumer groups as well, to sense check how well that is delivering what we wanted to do in terms of differentiating build to rent as a sector from the rest of the private rental sector, and really showcasing how high the standards that the sector works to, not just in terms of treating residents fairly, having great quality homes, but also the social value and the sustainability impacts that we have as well as a sector. So wrap that up now. Thank you everyone for your contributions. Follow up very soon, I'm sure, and we'll see you all again soon. Many thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye.
Thank you all. Thank you, Graham.
Thanks, Graham.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Have a great day.